In the rolling hills of Virginia, far from the bustling cities, the Fairfax estate had always been a symbol of wealth and respectability. But behind the sprawling manor and the meticulously kept gardens, a darkness festered, a darkness that would haunt generations. The townsfolk whispered about the family, not because of their riches or power, but because of the unexplained disappearances, the unmarked graves in the woods, and the faces that seemed to appear in windows, long after the house had been abandoned at night. The Fairfax family was unlike any other. Each generation bore the weight of a peculiar curse, passed down through marriage and inheritance. Some claimed it was divine punishment. Others insisted the family had dabbled in arts far darker than anyone dared to name. And as the decades passed, those who crossed the family line, or even glanced too long at their estate, reported nightmares, shadows in their rooms, and whispers carried on the wind that no living mouth had ever spoken. The first Fairfax to settle the estate, Thomas Fairfax, was known for his ambition. He was a man of sharp intelligence and equally sharp cruelty. Locals remember that the land he claimed was once the site of an indigenous burial ground. Though he built a manor on the hill, he never performed a proper blessing for the land. Scholars suggest that this desecration may have set in motion the family's dark legacy. The early records hint at strange behaviors. Servants reported seeing figures in the hallways that no one else saw. Guests at the estate described cold spots, unexplained drafts, and furniture moving when no one was near. And in a diary kept by one of Thomas's daughters, there is mention of a man who appeared in the mirrors, silently watching, long after the household had gone to bed. The writing is frantic and desperate, the ink smudged in places, as if the writer had been shaking in terror while recording the events. By the late 1800s, the Fairfax family's estate had grown both in size and infamy. Strange disappearances became almost commonplace. Children who had been sent to play in the orchard vanished, leaving only footprints that ended abruptly in the grass. Servants claimed they heard cries in the night, only to find the rooms empty when they ran to investigate. One of the most chilling cases involved Eleanor Fairfax, the matriarch in the 1870s. On a stormy night, she reportedly dragged a young stable boy into the cellar and locked the door. When the police arrived the next morning, the cellar was empty. No boy. No trace of the rope or the lantern she had used. Only the faint smell of something burned lingered in the air. Historians still debate the veracity of these claims, but letters, diaries, and court records provide disturbing evidence that at least some of these disappearances were documented, even if quietly. Perhaps the most infamous part of the Fairfax estate was the mirror room, a chamber on the top floor, covered wall to wall in old cracked mirrors. Those who dared enter reported seeing things that should not exist, reflections moving independently, faces of family members long dead, or creatures with distorted human features staring back from the glass. In 1892, a visiting historian documented the mirrors in a journal, noting that he felt watched by eyes that are not my own, in a room that does not obey the laws of physics. He claimed that each mirror seemed to hold a different version of the room, and that the reflections were alive, shifting subtly even as he moved. Many believed the mirror room was where the family performed rituals meant to bind souls to the estate, though no official record confirms this. By the 20th century, the Fairfax estate had fallen into ruin, yet the stories of hauntings persisted. Locals reported strange lights flickering in the abandoned windows, shadowy figures walking the hallways, and a feeling of cold dread in the air surrounding the estate. Paranormal investigators who visited in the 1970s documented high EMF readings, unexplained noises, and recordings of whispered voices that seemed to speak in a language no one recognized. One chilling account involves a group of teenagers exploring the estate in 1983. They reported that the front doors slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. When they finally escaped, one claimed to have seen a figure with hollow eyes standing in the attic, holding a child in its arms. The child's face was unmistakably that of a Fairfax family member, but centuries old. Even today, descendants of the Fairfax family are rumored to suffer from nightmares and strange health issues. Some say that the curse has spread beyond the estate, lingering in the bloodline. Historical records, anecdotal accounts, and folklore combine to paint a picture of a family whose obsession with power and control opened a door to something beyond comprehension. Researchers studying the estate have noted that any attempt to renovate or clear the property seems to fail mysteriously. Equipment breaks, workers leave, and those who stay too long often fall ill. Locals believe the estate itself has become a sentient entity, bound to the dark energy created over centuries. The Fairfax estate is more than a house. It is a monument to human obsession, cruelty, and the consequences of trespassing into realms best left untouched. The horrors of the Fairfax family are not just tales. They are reminders that some histories cannot be buried, some evils cannot be contained, and some legacies, no matter how beautiful or wealthy, are doomed to haunt the present. As historians continue to study the estate and paranormal investigators document the remaining ruins, one thing becomes clear. The Fairfax family story is far from over, and for those who dare to explore the dark corners of their legacy, the echoes of the past are waiting, silent, patient, and malevolent. The Fairfax family's dark tale began with Thomas Fairfax, the ambitious patriarch who first claimed the Virginia estate. He was a man who valued land and legacy above all else, but little did he know, the soil itself bore a history darker than any law or title could cover. The estate sat atop what had once been sacred burial grounds, and Thomas, in his pride, ignored the warnings etched into oral traditions passed down by the local communities. He plowed through history as though it were merely earth beneath his feet. The very first servants of the Fairfax mansion recorded strange occurrences in hushed letters. Candles would flicker without cause, doors slammed shut with no wind, and sometimes a shadow would move against the grain of the room. A young maid named Lillian wrote that she often heard children crying in rooms long abandoned, only to find them empty upon investigation. She stopped writing entirely after she claimed to see a man staring at her from the mirrors, his face impossibly pale, his eyes hollow yet piercing. Even the family themselves were not immune. Thomas's wife Margaret would often wander the halls late at night, muttering prayers that seemed to repel something unseen. Guests who stayed overnight described the house as breathing, walls subtly expanding and contracting, floors creaking as though the estate itself were alive. These were not simple tricks of the mind. The Fairfax estate seemed to have a consciousness, attuned to those who dwelled within it. By the mid-1800s, the Fairfax family's name was synonymous with fear among the locals. Children sent to play near the orchard vanished mysteriously, leaving only footprints that abruptly ended at the edge of the woods. One servant, Samuel, swore he saw a little girl in a white dress playing near the fountain one evening. When he approached, she looked at him and vanished into thin air, leaving only the echo of her laughter behind. The most notorious incident occurred in 1874. Eleanor Fairfax, the matriarch of the house, was said to have dragged a young stable boy into the cellar. When law enforcement arrived the next day, the cellar was empty. No boy, no lantern, no rope, only the lingering smell of something burned, a scent that no one could place. Some believe Eleanor was attempting to appease the dark force inhabiting the estate, offering a life in exchange for safety. Others claim she herself had gone mad, driven by visions only she could see. Courts and police reports exist but are scarce. What little survives paints a grim portrait, servants quitting abruptly, travelers avoiding the estate, and a pattern of fear so strong that it seemed to suffocate the very land around it. Perhaps the estate's most disturbing feature was the mirror room. Located on the top floor, it was a chamber lined entirely with cracked, aged mirrors. Those who entered the room often reported that their reflections moved independently of their actions. One historian, Edward Harlow, wrote in his 1892 journal that he saw faces of ancestors long dead smiling back at me, though their lips never moved, their eyes following my every step. Servants who dared to clean the mirrors spoke of being watched by unseen presences. They would hear whispers behind them, often in languages unknown, chanting in soft, unrecognizable tones. It was said that the Fairfax family performed rituals here, rituals designed to tether souls to the estate, binding the living to the land long after their bodies had perished. Even the air in the room felt thick, as if breathing itself became a task. Some modern paranormal investigators suggest that the mirrors act as conduits between the living and the dead, capturing the energy of all who have suffered or perished within the house. Others believe it was psychological manipulation, a house so steeped in fear that it warped perception itself. But no one can deny the accounts of those who entered the room and never spoke of it again. By the 20th century, the Fairfax estate had fallen into disrepair, yet the malevolence never left. Lights flickered in windows where no electricity existed. Shadows moved against walls where no one walked. Even the bravest of paranormal investigators reported sensations of being followed, touched, and observed by invisible entities. In 1983, a group of teenagers exploring the ruins claimed that the front doors slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. One of them reported seeing a tall, gaunt figure holding a child. The child's face bore unmistakable Fairfax features, yet it was decades old. When they finally escaped, they found scratches on the walls, deep enough to catch fingernails, but no one else had been inside. Locals continued to tell stories of ghostly figures wandering the estate's grounds, of voices carried on the wind, and of unexplained cold spots that drive animals and humans alike away. Cameras left overnight often record flashes of light, distorted silhouettes, and figures moving faster than the eye can follow. Even after the estate fell into ruin, the Fairfax bloodline seemed to carry the weight of the curse. Descendants reported nightmares so vivid they would wake screaming, dreaming of halls they had never entered, and mirrors that reflected faces not their own. Some claimed to feel hands brushing their skin in empty rooms or to hear whispers in the middle of silent nights. Attempts to renovate or restore the estate failed inexplicably. Construction equipment broke without explanation, walls collapsed, and workers reported feeling watched by unseen eyes. Some quit in fear, swearing they could hear children laughing in hallways where no children had ever been. Others reported seeing figures in the mirrors, smiling in ways that no living human could. Even in death, the Fairfax name carried its sinister reputation. Historical researchers noted that any document referencing the family often vanished, mysteriously misplaced or destroyed. Some suspect that the estate itself is alive in a metaphysical sense, feeding on fear and obsession, growing stronger with each generation that dares to live in its shadow. In the 1970s and 1980s, a series of paranormal investigators documented the estate. EMF readings in the mansion's halls would spike without explanation. Cameras captured distorted silhouettes and lights flickering in rooms where no one was present. EVP, electronic voice phenomena. Recordings captured whispers speaking in a language no one recognized, sometimes responding to questions in chilling, unintelligible tones. One investigator described entering the mirror room and experiencing an overwhelming sensation of being pulled toward the glass. It felt like the mirrors were alive, he reported, like they were trying to trap me inside. Another team member noted scratches on the walls that appeared overnight, as if someone, or something, had been writing messages to the living. The evidence remains controversial, yet the accounts are consistent. The Fairfax estate continues to generate phenomena that defy conventional explanation. Even modern-day visitors report a sense of oppression, an intangible weight that hangs over the property, reminding them that some histories and some horrors refuse to be buried. Today, the Fairfax estate stands as a decayed monument to obsession, cruelty, and the unknown. Locals speak of it only in whispers. Visitors swear they see figures in the broken windows, shadows moving against the light of the setting sun. Reflections in the remaining mirrors sometimes show faces not present, often those of long-dead Fairfaxes staring directly at the observer. The true horror of the Fairfax family is not just in the vanished children, the mirror room, or the cursed bloodline. It is in the way their history persists. Time has not erased the darkness. It has only amplified it. And for those who dare explore the estate, the legacy waits, patient, malevolent, eternal. As the sun sets over the rolling hills of Virginia, the Fairfax name still haunts the whispers of the wind. Some secrets, some curses cannot be ended. They only endure, shaping those who come too close, and marking the Fairfax family forever in the annals of true historical horror.